Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all new Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reid. So, we are back this week with an exciting interview. We have Tony Gomez from Law Flor Dominicana joining us, and we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on with Law Flor Dominicana. We're going to talk about their NFT project, we're going to talk about the factory, Litto, the family, uh, a whole bunch of other releases, and also give a little tease to what you can expect to come out this summer and to be introduced in a couple weeks at the PCA trade show. So let me bring on Tony.
Hey,
How are you?
Antoine.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Like you were always, I know I've said this a lot over the last couple of weeks, but there's like a certain group of people that I was like, if I can get this podcast like in working order and off of Instagram Live, I was like, Tony Gomez is definitely one of those people that I want to have on, but it can't be this Instagram Live thing because it was a very shaky situation. So thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for considering me for that.
Well, yeah, it's funny because people always.
Usually I'm the Instagram live guy, and my dad's the the professional guy. So I appreciate that. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, I always tell people always ask me, what cigars do you like to smoke and stuff like that. And I always tell them La Flor Dominicana because people, I guess with me being the writer that I am during the day, they think that I have always smoked cigars and I have not. So I didn't start until 2015, which is not that far,
Sure.
away from here. And I remember going to my first pro cigar in 2019, and all the media people tend to hang out. So I was with Yami from Cigar Snob, and I remember both she and I were on the La Flor Dominicana tour, and it was our early morning. And
Yeah.
she was like, Antoine, did you eat? And I was like, sort of. I was like, I had like a donut or something. She was like, I hope you're going to be okay. She's like, these cigars are really strong, Antoine. She's like, I don't think you realize it. And I was like, oh, I'll be fine. And I was pretty good. I was like, I was pretty good. It was a good experience. And so ever
You
since
did all
then,
right.
I've tried to work my way through your portfolio. So La Flor Dominicana is one of those brands that I'm really fond of. So I usually tell people La Flor Dominicana uh, because I think you all make some pretty good cigars.
Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you.
So I definitely want people to kind of get your story and get your family story because I just worked on a story about you all for a magazine that I work for, Tobacco Business Magazine. So I know that you were interviewed by the magazine's art director.
Hmm.
So I kind of got like the fly on the wall effect of hearing your conversation and hearing the story about the family. So I kind of want to kind of bring that forth here in Deep Cuts today and have you kind of share your family story and also your story and journey within the cigar industry and just kind of give us an idea of like what's like I said, what is La Flor Dominicana because it's one of those brands that I think is pretty big. But it was funny because I there was a part of your interview where you were talking about how people kind of think that since you all have your own factory that you're just a big operation and then until they get there and see the factory they don't realize that you're a small operation but I still think you're a big operation and I've seen the factory so I'm curious to hear your story and so I just wanted you to kind of share with us how did you get into the industry and did you always intend to join the family business or was it one of those things that kind of happened by chance.
Sure. Well, yeah, you're right on what you mentioned. We're actually, there's a perception that we're a lot bigger than we actually are, which is, I mean, that's we like that, I think that's great. That's exactly what we want. But we're actually people are probably surprised to hear how small we are, compared to some other factories. But the name is strong, so that's a good sign. But so yeah, LFD is a very unique creature in the cigar world. It's we don't have the kind of the story that you're used to hearing. LFD, I mean, in reality, should have never happened. This shouldn't be here. This is just a crazy idea that my father had like 28 years ago. And I guess to fully understand it, I got to give you the whole history, right? So So my father was born in Spain in La Coruña, little fishing town on the coast. Um, and he was about 2 years old. The family immigrated to Uruguay, tiny little country in South America, and that's where he grew up, right? He, at one point when he was 17 or so, he became a professional soccer player. But Uruguay's a very poor country, so they didn't have any money to pay the soccer players, right? So he had to, move on with his life, and he made his way to Toronto. That was the first time he left the country. He went to Toronto, Canada. Didn't really speak any English, um, and didn't had no idea how cold it was going to be, I guess. But he started. He got a job at a factory, and then he went to a restaurant. He worked as a busboy, and then he became actually a dishwasher, and then a busboy, and then a waiter. And he kind of did the whole thing at the restaurant, which is why he's a very good cook today. Right? He learned a lot there. But he was there illegally, so they caught him eventually, and they sent him back to Uruguay, and he kind of had to start from square one. Um, so he goes to Buenos Aires in Argentina, opens up a little store. He sells like wine and cheese and things like that. Meanwhile, his brother, my uncle, had moved to Miami, and my father went to visit him. And I guess it was kind of like one of those love at first sight things. He went to Miami. He's like, "This is I gotta be here, right?" So he found a way to get there, and so they partnered up on some businesses. I think at first they had a liquor store, and then eventually they opened a nightclub, and then eventually he opened a pawn shop. It was called Litto's Cash, and there he learned a lot about jewelry, and so he took it to the next level, opened up his own jewelry store. Um, at the jewelry store one day, it wasn't the first time this had happened, but this was like kind of a little bit more dramatic than previous occasions. Well, he got robbed, right? Two guys come in with masks and guns, and they tie him up to a chair in the back and blindfold him. One holds a gun to his head, the other one clears the whole place out. And I think at that moment he just kind of said, you know what, fuck this, I don't want I don't want to do this anymore. So he sold the business. I guess he recovered some money through his insurance, and then it was what's next? What do I do next? And he was a cigar smoker at the time, but he didn't know anything more about making cigars than anybody else. We have no family history in this, right? So this isn't like this was passed down from generations and this and that. No history. He just got this idea in his head that he wanted to do this, right? And the reason I say that LFD shouldn't be here and how this is a crazy idea is because this is 1993, right? So very different industry from what it is today. 1993, the cigar industry was actually a dying industry. People didn't really know what the future was. It wasn't doing very well, um, and uh, and when you look back then, like the brands that existed then, those are brands that were around for generations. All the cigar factories and the brands back then, they had been around for a long, long time. There was no new companies. Nobody came down to DR or opened factories in those days. Fast forward today, you have new brands all the time, right? Which is a good sign. People want to be a part of the industry, so that's a good thing. But back then, it wasn't like that. If you weren't in it for generations, you didn't get into it. There was no newcomers, and so yeah, he consulted a lot of people. Everybody told him he was crazy. And this doesn't make any sense. You're gonna fail. Do not do it. Please don't do it. But luckily, my dad is very steadfast. He gets an idea into his head, and it's just full speed ahead. And the guy makes it happen somehow. He didn't finish high school. He's got no college education. He just has a lot of common sense and like a amazing work ethic. Like you've never seen. And so he decided he wanted to do this, and he also decided that he didn't want to contract a factory to make the cigars for him. He needed to make them himself at his own factory, which again he had no idea how to do. Right, so that's a problem. He moved down here, about a little tiny spot, just a hole in the wall, and got to work on figuring it all out. Right. I think the first 20,000 cigars that he made, something like that, he had to tear them up and throw them away because they sucked. They were no good. Um, and so it was a huge learning curve. A lot of people helped him along the way, and then it ended up being great timing, right? Because about 94, 95, that's when the cigar boom starts to kick in. You know, Cigar Aficionado comes out in 92, and then it eventually leads to this boom. Like in 95, 96 is really where it peaked, right? So it gave an unknown brand like LFD an opportunity because all the other brands that they were backward. They didn't have enough cigars for the market. Nobody could make enough cigars. So LFD, whatever, send me whatever you got, you know? And so it gave us a chance to find some space on the shelves in the shops, and it kind of started from there, right? Um, and little by little, the factory grew. A few years later, like 97, 98 or so, he decided that he needed to buy his own farm to really fully control everything behind the process. And again, he didn't know anything about farming tobacco, so that's another thing he had to learn. um, but that ended up being the best decision we ever made, right? Because today we can really say that we control every step behind our cigars. La Flor Dominicana cigars are made by La Flor Dominicana. The tobacco is grown by La Flor Dominicana, and we got control, man. And we get to make the cigars that we want to make. And but yeah, it's a crazy story, and there's a lot more detail that I could get into, but we could spend the whole show talking about it. But that's how LFD started, man.
What I think is cool about the story is, like you were saying, your family, a lot in the cigar industry, you hear about, my great grandfather started off in Cuba and he migrated to Nicaragua or Honduras or Dominican Republic and kept on going. And then my father started the company, and then I started in it. And then, but like you said, like your father started, and he was like the first generation of, your family's tobacco business. And I know when I was working on your story and listening to the interview that you did with the art director, um, and I heard the part where you said, about Litto not going to the university and stuff like that. But to me, it's cool because he learned on the scene, and
Yeah,
you would never think today like it didn't matter. I mean, he's the epitome of an entrepreneur in my opinion, because it's like he was willing to put in the time to learn what it took to really get this business going. And really, to me, maybe what's I don't know how other people would feel about it, but to me, he was a blueprint of like the boutique movement, because he started his own factory from the get go, because he rubbed some crystal ball and foresaw that relying on others was not the way to go. He has his own farm. It just seems, like I said, La Flor Dominicana is like the blueprint for the boutique movement, really, because you all kind of showed everybody else this is how you do it. It's going to be more costly. It's going to be more time consuming. You might not have the same success like right away, but if you put in the time and the work, then you're going to lay a foundation that will give you a brand that can last, decades.
sure. Now, I'm not going to say that, the our philosophy, we didn't invent this philosophy, right? And there have been other brands that existed before us that operate in the same way, but it's definitely, obviously a tried and true way to do things. And yeah, I don't know what the exact definition of boutique is. I think everybody's kind of got their own definition of it, but uh, I mean, I like to think at least that we are a boutique style manufacturer, because I mean, I don't know what else you would need to be one, but we do everything the right way. We make a lot. We make far less cigars than we can sell. I think that would be a good requisite for it, right? So we're not making as many as possible to sell as many as possible. We're making as many as we can within our quality standard, and that's a rule that we stick to. So it doesn't matter how many cigars we have on back order. We're immune to the back orders at this point, right? We do what we can. We make them as many as we can, and if we can't make any more, then we just don't, and that's it.
And I think that's a good, uh, thing to have, because you have to realize, and that people have to realize, that this is a handmade product. Like, you are not mass producing it. And what I think is cool about Pro Cigar is that when you're at Pro Cigar and you go on the La Flor Dominicana tour, you get to see the factory, and you get to see the individuals who are sitting there making this product. And then you kind of realize, and it clicks, like, oh, this isn't some mass, this isn't a big factory somewhere where
Mm-hmm.
we're just shooting out cigars and, it's all robot. driven and AI stuff. It's just like it's
No
real
way.
handmade people
No
doing the
way.
work. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, like you said, of course it's going to be a back order. It's almost like duh, like you can't, you're not working there 24 hours a day. Um, you can only, you're kind of dependent on the people who are putting in the
sure.
work and the time to really make sure that that's a handcrafted product. But that's like I said, the cool part about your brand is that it really is handmade, handcrafted boutique.
Absolutely. That's yeah, that's to me it's one of the coolest things about cigars is that it's really if you really look at it, like cigars are made today almost exactly the same way they were made 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and nothing has changed, right? Because none of these processes can be can you can't use machines to do any of these processes, right? Fermentation is fermentation. It takes how long it takes, and nothing can really change that. Sorting, you'll never find a machine to do that, and obviously cigars have to be hand rolled, and a machine will never have the touch required to roll a cigar. A machine-made cigar, whatever, it's a whole different. It's an entirely different product. It's got nothing to do with what we're doing here.
Right. And so, at what point did you come into the family business? And like I said, was it something that you always imagined yourself doing, or was it something that just kind of happened?
So no, it wasn't. It really wasn't. I was like 7 years old when all this started. So I guess I almost kind of grew up around it. And my father is not the type of person that pressures anybody into anything. I mean, he always made it very clear that if I ever want to be a part of the business, he would love to have me, and I'll have a spot in the company. But he always insisted that I do something that makes me happy, whatever that might be, whether it be with the company or doing whatever else. But that was always something he emphasized: do something that makes you happy. Um, I I went to Florida State, and I was actually an English major. I was a writing major, and I thought, my plan kind of was to go to grad school and study screenwriting, go to a film school and study screenwriting. Um, and I had like a revelation, and I kid you not, I'm pretty sure it was, I was like playing beer pong at a party or something. I think I was drunk, and I just had one of those like moments of clarity, and I got to thinking about it, and I said, you know what? Uh, Most people don't get opportunities like this in their life, and if I don't at least give it a shot, then I'm an idiot, right? So I have to at least try it. If I don't like it, then whatever, I'll figure something else out. But I should try it, So not too long after that, I called my dad, and then we got together in Miami when I was on break, and we met and kind of went over what the plan would be, and so immediately after I graduated, so me and my buddies all graduated the same day, throw a huge party. I mean, I was shit faced, and I got onto a plane at about 4 in the morning. I had to take a shower, put on a suit, and then I got onto a plane and I landed in New Orleans for the trade show. So I went directly from the party to the trade show, and I started immediately. It was no break whatsoever. And I started off as a sales rep. So I covered the state of Florida, which is from Pensacola to Key West, about 200 stores, and I did that for a little over 3 years, like 3.5 years. Um, and then I moved down here to Dominican Republic to work at the factory, and I've been here for like 10 years now.
So, what's your favorite part of the job? And then what part do you kind of not like as much? I would say, I won't say hate, but what
Sure.
part do you not like?
My favorite part of what I do is the creative work, right? So that's it's always been important to me to do something creative with my life, and so I kind of latched on to that here as soon as I could, right? So I have a big part in like the designs of the rings, the boxes, the blends, the conceptualizing of brands and the development of them, social media ads, things like that. So yeah, anything creative these days, LD, I've got my hand in one way or another. That's my favorite thing. That's what really moves me. My least favorite part is uh, there's always stuff that nobody wants to do. There's, you got to remember to follow up on this and that, and then you got this problem here. I don't hate anything about the job, but the creative stuff is what I love most.
Yeah, like I said, it takes me back to conversations I've had with different people in the industry, like Michael Herklotz, who says so many people see Instagram and that's a curated version of our lives. So they think the cigar industry is all travel and
Right.
fun and parties and drinks and stuff like that. And he says, but you don't post pictures, of course, of the days where you're spending like 9 hours in front of a computer or trying to get your bands printed, trying to stay on top of stuff because that's not the fun
Uh-huh.
part, but it's all a
Uh-huh.
necessary part of the evil of the working process. So
Exactly. Yeah, they don't see like the 6 hour road trips from like Arkansas to Mississippi, and then you're staying in like a motel because it's the best thing in town, and it's it's not always as pretty as people think it is.
and when you were talking about the creative part, I always think that's a part that of La Flor Dominicana story that people don't get because branding is such an important part of what sets your brand apart from and your products apart from anybody else in the humidor. And so there's like, I think if you could just take us through some of like the backstories behind some of these cigars that you all have put out, because I know that they have some artistic influences like Lennox, and Illusion Bull. Like, where did the inspiration come from for these releases?
Sure. Well, Lennox, the inspiration for Lennox came from the Brazilian wrapper that it uses, right? So it was this wrapper that we had gotten a hold of recently, and I just fell in love with it very quickly. It had these really dark, like these dark chocolate notes and kind of like coffee notes, and it was very different because we're known for making very powerful kind of spicy cigars,
Mm-hmm.
and this just had like it's a totally the opposite end of the spectrum. Like I always see the flavor spectrum as kind of like spice on one side, chocolate on the other, and then kind of nuttiness in the middle. I simplify it that way in my head. But so this was like very much on the opposite end of the spectrum from what we're known for, and I I tasted that wrapper, and I wanted to blend something around it, and I didn't know what the cigar was going to be called or anything, but I wanted to go for those darker flavors, and so we got to blending, and came out with the blend, and it was perfect, right? It had exactly what I wanted with these dark flavors, this kind of roasted coffee, cacao, um, and the flavors themselves kind of ended up inspiring the theme, which was Lennox, which is Latin for the night, right? Um, so that's when we got to work on the packaging and everything, and obviously it's night themed. You got the moon on it. You have the circular box which represents the full moon. You have the crescent moon on the packaging. The font that we use is actually based on Vincent van Gogh's handwriting, because I always loved like the Starry Night paintings and all that, right? So that's where we took the blue from, and then Lennox was born, right? So Lennox was one where the the flavors of the cigar led to the name and the packaging and everything. And Delusion Bowl was a different. The journey was a little different, right? So my father was in Belgium, and he was visiting. He was with our distributor there. He was visiting some shops and getting to know the market a little bit. And he took an afternoon off to go visit a good friend of ours, Fred. Right, Fred owns J. Cortez Cigars, which is Fred?
Yeah, Fred
He's like,
Vanderbilt here.
yeah, he's like the best guy in the world. Fred's the
Yes.
coolest guy ever. I love him. But yeah, so for those that don't know, Jay Cortez, very old European company. They do a lot of not so much premium cigars, but they're in the machine made. They're in pretty much any segment of tobacco out there. But they did recently buy Oliva, right? So that they
Mhm.
are now fully into the premium category. Um, but so my dad went to go visit Fred, and took the afternoon to go see him at his office, and so they were in the office, and at one point Fred had to leave and go take care of something. So when Fred leaves, my dad gets to snooping around a little bit in the office, right? And he finds this old wooden cigar mold with the shape, right? The bull shape. and he snuck a picture of it and he sent it to me. And you know, we chatted about it. Like that's a really that size is cool. You know, we should do something with it. And I'm looking at it and I got to thinking the size reminded me of something powerful, right? Like a bull. Like a bull was the first thing that came popped into my head. But I wanted to add a little more depth to that idea, you know. So eventually, just Andalusian bull popped into my head. You know, Andalusia is a region in Spain, which is kind of the mecca for bullfighting. You know, that's where all that stuff originated. And I loved the way it rolled off my tongue. It sounded cool, and you know, it also worked because it was kind of a tribute to my father's birth country of Spain. Um, so I like the name, I like the idea, and we got to work on the packaging first. Um, and so yeah, you know, you got the green, which represents the Andalusian flag. You have obviously the bullfighter. You've got the kind of like decorative swirls that come out. That you know we took that from like bullfighter uniform patterns. You got the bullseyes all around the bullfighter, and then the font again was actually based on Pablo Picasso's handwriting because he's from Andalusia. You know, and a lot of his famous paintings include bulls and things like that, right? So that's how that whole thing came together. So with this one, we actually had the packaging done before the cigar was ever blended, you know, and then we kind of got to work on blending the cigar, and so so yeah, we both collaborated on that one, and we went through yeah, probably a good 30 blends or so until we got it perfect and we both agreed on it, and then the rest is history, right? And then what we never expected to happen happened, right? The cigar was it's a big cigar. It's kind of expensive. This was meant to be like a celebration thing, something you smoke on New Year's or like a baby's born or whatever. And then it wins number one cigar of the year, and it just becomes this monster beyond anything we could ever imagine. And we were totally unprepared for it. This cigar was never supposed to be that, you know. And but that's what happened, and we're very happy for it. But the Andalusian Bull really, it became this uncontrollable animal, you know.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that. Like when you all win something like Cigar of the Year from Cigar Aficionado, and suddenly everybody wants to try that cigar, is like, what is that reaction like? Is it both like a like, yay, and then like a man, like now we have to like, now there's like all your retailers are saying like I need it in store and all this
Uh,
stuff. Like, what is that like? What's that experience like?
that's I mean, it's a good way to sum it up. It's amazing, unbelievable, holy shit, and then reality sets in, and you're like, holy shit, you know, what are we gonna do now? Because I mean, so the bull had like we had released it to the market, I think maybe in October, September, October, and then in December it won number one. So it was only a span of like a couple months. Most people had never even didn't even know the cigar, you know. Like there was tons of smokers I think that saw that and said, "What the hell is the Andalusian Bull? I've never even seen that." So yeah, of course and here's the thing is that you know they don't tell you. You get no prior warning. You find out when everybody else finds out. And you know they changed. I think they do it in January now, but back then they did it at the end of December. Um, all cigar factories in Dominican Republic close for 3 weeks at the end of December, right? So there's like this 3 week holiday break, and it was announced the day before we closed the factory, right? So this gets announced. The phones in Miami rang like you would never like. I mean, there's nothing comparable to it. You know, the poor girls at the office were they didn't know what to do. You know, and then meanwhile the factory closes, right? So there's like nothing we could do for 3 weeks, and we were just collecting orders and orders and orders that we can't even come close to filling. You know, so and then you know we came back, you know, in January and got to work. But at the end of the day, uh, the philosophy applies, man. We made what we can make, and we continue to make what we can make. You know, the Andalusian Bull is still back ordered to all hell, you know, and it is what it is. You know, everybody complains about it, but you know, our the way I like to see it is that when it comes to the bull, we like to make sure that everybody is equally unhappy with the amount that they get. You know, because that's the best that we can do. We can't. Nobody's happy with what they get, and we're spreading it out as best as we can. But the demand for that cigar is the same today as it was in December 2016 when it won. It hasn't changed, right? So uh, it's due to that philosophy. You know, people might be upset that they can't find it, but when they do, it's the cigar that they wanted.
And I also wanted to ask you about the football cigar because every year around the Super Bowl time, you all release this football cigar, which is to me has become like one of those early year anticipated releases. You know you're going to do
Yeah.
it, and you all change it up every year. So how did that come about?
This actually came up as an idea in a cigar lounge. I think Carney was John Carney, our VP of sales. He was in a shop somewhere, and I don't know. He got to talking with one of the retailers, and this kind of idea just formulated there. And then he brought it to us, and it seemed cool. So all right, let's give it a shot. And it's been a huge success. People love it every year, like you said. I think people are looking forward to it, and people are like collecting trying to collect the ones from every year, and it's a super cool little project. It's very limited, um, but it's fun. Everybody loves it, man. Yeah,
It's one of those that you want to collect, but then you want to smoke, and so you're just like,
right.
what should I do? It's like a Sophie's Choice kind of thing. Like, just do I light it up? I know I have I don't think I was able to get the one from this year, but I know I got the ones from the previous years. So it's just one of those like fun releases that kind of I think you all kind of came in and really owned that that time frame and that Super Bowl event, which I thought was kind of ingenious because it's like I said, build an anticipation for it and
Sure,
do it in that limited release format and just get that demand up every year. I'm sure people start asking you all about it, you know,
sure.
early on in the football season, like what's it going to be? Can I place my order now?
Oh yeah, yeah. We start preparing for this like 6 7 months before the actual Super Bowl. So yeah.
Wow. What's it like working with so closely with your dad? Because I think about that. I think not everyone could do that.
Sure.
But it looks like you all have fun because I've seen some of your Instagram posts and some of the videos that you all do. You all are always kind of laughing and you do some little comedic takes sometimes. And he seems, I know, like from going to the factory that one time with Pro Cigar, is that he's very lively. He seems like a character within himself. So,
Oh,
what's that dynamic?
he's a character like few others. There's not many like him. um, man, I've heard a lot of horror stories about working with your parents and family businesses in general. It's just not the situation here. I, we get along awesome. I think we make a really good team, uh, and we collaborate. The one of the things I always say, like one of the things I respect the most about my father is that I mean he's Lito Gomez. He's got all the accolades in the world, Cigar Professional Hall of Fame. He's been called the most innovative mind in the cigar business. I mean the list goes on and on. And all of that was before I had anything to do with the company, right? So um, but one of the things I really admire about him is that he's always listened to my opinion and always he will always hear me out. Whatever idea I might have, and I come up to him with some crazy fucking ideas sometimes, but he will always listen and he's always open to my suggestions. And and if he decides not to go with my idea or if he disagrees with me, he'll explain to me why. Um, but yeah, so we get along great. We have an awesome working relationship, and yeah, I don't know, we're almost like he's like my best friend. It's kind of like that. So no family business horror stories here. It's awesome. I mean, it couldn't be better, really.
You have a memorable Lido moment that you wanted to share with people?
I got a lot of memorable Leo moments. Um, One in particular, uh, shit. Oh, I don't know, man. My father's just a character every day, Like sometimes I'll like walk into the office and he's like blasting Bocelli like at fucking 1,000 decibels, and you can't even like work. You can't concentrate. He's he's like he's got these mood shifts. It's like some days you walk in and he's like bright and sunshine, and he's like oh yeah, I'm cooking this, I'm doing that. But some days you walk in and he's like yelling and oh shit, you know. So like I always like plan out like if I have an idea to present or something, like you know, I always have to like gauge the mood. You know, it depends. Has he had his coffee yet? Has he had a cigar? Is he good? Did he eat? You know, and then and then you go in for the kill when you think the time is right.
Um, when, like I said, I've been out to your factory during Pro Cigar 1 year, and you have like this mural. And I'm sure you get asked about it a lot. It's the Statue of Liberty mural.
Yeah.
Like, what's the story behind that?
That's our interpretation of Lady Liberty. That's what it should be. You know, they should let us fucking smoke a cigar if we're old enough to do it. Jesus, man, our government is just so irrationally. Uh, they're fighting us so irrationally. You know, none of this makes any sense, and they know it, but they don't care, right? Um, but I don't understand why a legal age adult isn't allowed to do things that legal age adults can do. I mean, what's the big fucking deal, right? So it's just, you know, our interpretation of it. It's, I think, you know, we say that the United States is a free country. We like to say that a lot, but you know, every day it is less and less. You know, um, it's kind of just a thing that we like to say to ourselves, but it's becoming a nanny state, man.
Yeah, it was funny. The last time, like, I think it was 2019 when I did the Pro Cigar tour in La Flor Dominicana, and it started off at the farm in the field, and it was awesome. You put on the little booties to walk through the mud and stuff like that, and
Uh-huh.
we went to the curing barn and saw Litto on the horse and everything. So we got like the full effect, and then like right as you think it's over, it's like no, like it's not over. Like get onto the buses and we're gonna go to the factory and like you say, you get to see Litto cook. The weird thing
Yeah.
about that for me in 2019 was like when we did that, I was on the bus and our bus got lost going to your factory, and the person didn't speak English, so I was on there with a bunch of English speaking people, which is kind of rare for Pro Cigar because it's international, so you never know what you're gonna get.
There should always be some Spanish speaker, right?
Yeah, but it was like nobody could communicate with this guy. And we were all from the United States apparently. And he was just like driving around, had no idea where to go. And I remember he stopped off at different towns in between asking, did they know where La Flor Dominicana factory was? It was the strangest. I was just like, we're never gonna get anywhere. Like we didn't have the Pro Cigar people's number or we would call them and stuff. It was just a strange thing. But luckily we got there and everything was it was like great. And like I said, you got you get the Lido food, but that was just the most bizarre, because
Yeah.
you kind of are like out there, but I don't know what out
Yeah.
there is compared to like law for for Dominican Republic. But it was a nice.
Well, from the farm to the factory, there's a lot of no man's land in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember I was like riding along and I was like, oh no. I was like, this isn't like one of those like moments because everybody was like, "Sir, are you lost?" And he just like will look back at us and just like keep driving. And then, like I said, it was just the strangest, bizarre thing. But anyway, not to diverge, but you were there's like certain releases, and I wanted to talk about the NFT project and also the ashtray project. But I wanted to show people a visual of this. So let me get it set up real quick. Uh, because I think it's a really cool, and I think you kind of have to see it to really get the full effect. Okay, so can you tell us about this ashtray and what makes it different from any other ashtray?
This was my father's passion project throughout COVID. We both like you know, the factory was closed for a while, and then when it reopened it was like only at half capacity. So I mean there was like, you know, some free time to kind of, you know, work on some things. And the ashtrays were my dad's passion project. He started doing this you know, around the beginning of COVID. And and we're both alike in this thing, in this sense that, you know, like we latch onto a thing and then we just get totally obsessed with it, you know. And this became this total obsession of his, making these ashtrays, right? I mean, we've got a whole laboratory set up at the factory. It's unbelievable. Like he made it himself, like this vacuum machine, like a vacuum pump machine that takes all the air out of the resin, and that makes it like perfectly smooth and pristine and perfect. It looks like glass. But so yeah, these the cool thing about these ashtrays, one is like they're beautiful, right? The colors, the way like the light shines through and reflects out, they're just fucking beautiful. But like they're actually made by us here at the factory, right? So these are almost handmade. I mean, this isn't like crap from China, like cheap shit from China. Like we're making this here, and this is like something that took like a year and a half, 2 years to really perfect. So there they are. I mean, they're fucking gorgeous. We think that they're more than just ashtrays. I mean, it's like a decoration piece, really. You put this in. This is something you want to put in your house, like in the center table, or you put on your desk. It's beautiful, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice statement piece. Like you say, when you
Yeah.
think of ashtrays, like for me as a child of the 80s, I think of, you had some decorative ashtrays, but it was mostly just like a little glass bowl or whatever, and
Right.
nobody really gave it any thought. But this is like art pieces. I mean, like the
Yeah.
colors really pop, and it's just like like you said, something that even if you don't smoke, I could see you easily kind of putting it in the middle of a table and having people like really admire it, and it's a
Yep.
conversation starter, which is always to me like what you will want out of an accessory.
Absolutely.
And now the next project was, like I said, the NFT project. So this is just like some different shots of this NFT. So for people, I've always wanted to talk about NFTs on here, and I never had the opportunity to. But could you tell people who are listening, like, what is an NFT, and then how did you all manage to like merge something so new school with the tradition, uh, the traditional cigar industry? Because that's a hard
Right.
mix sometimes.
Right. So let me. I'll try to explain it as simply as I can. It's a little complicated, but really it's more complicated than it sounds. So, um, if you have a basic understanding of, say Bitcoin or crypto in general, a Bitcoin can be transacted from one person to the other without an intermediary, right? And the reason why is because of the blockchain. The blockchain is basically a virtual ledger that records all transactions that are made, and it and it's concrete, it's solid, it never goes away, and it's infallible, right? Because it's validated by thousands, hundreds of thousands of computers set up all over the world who validate the transactions, right? Um, and so an NFT, you can think of it as its own cryptocurrency, right? So this NFT, usually there's some kind of an image that represents it. That image can be traded from one person to the other through the blockchain, exactly the way that a Bitcoin is, or any other crypto coin, right? And so the interesting thing is that the transactions are all recorded, and the NFTs can have something in it called a smart contract. Um, Basically, rules can be programmed into it. And again, this is all computer-based algorithms. Like it never fails, right? So the whole paper trail of all the owners is within the code of that NFT, and it never goes away. So you'll always have proof that this is the original one that you can trace back to the original maker of it, right? Um, but no, that doesn't really matter, right? Um, what we're doing here is is an experiment. We're doing another crazy experiment, right? So, like we were talking about before, we have no family history in cigars. This was all a crazy idea that my dad had 28 years ago. And the one of the cool things that I love about LFD, and like if I were a cigar smoker, if I were on the other side, I would be attracted to LFD because LFD is just I think LFD is unique and it does things its own way, right? We've never tried to recreate the classic brands. We've never tried to be like the classic brands, because I think that's a losing battle, right? The classics are the classics, and that's it. There's not room for new classics. So I think you should do your own thing. You should kind of create your own image, your own vibe, and that's what we've always done. So we've always been innovative when it comes to sizes and packaging and this and that. And so I think eventually somebody was going to do this, and why not us, right? I think we were perfect for it. This project started February of last year. Um, I remember I was at my house, I was smoking a cigar, and I think I was like reading through Reddit. Um, and then, I started, this is like when the whole NFT thing kind of became mainstream. And I'm seeing all this stuff about NFTs, and this guy Beeple sold one for I don't know how many $1 million. I immediately I'm just like, what the fuck is an NFT? What is this? And then, so I do my research, I went down the rabbit hole, I started watching videos and, reading anything I could. And so I get to thinking like, how can I get involved in this? Um, and I was smoking the cigar, and I looked at it, and like the light bulb goes off, and I'm like, well, can this be an NFT? and and sure, why not? So that's how the whole concept started. And it took a lot more research from there. We partnered up with a company called Eureka that's involved in this whole crypto NFT space, because there's technical aspects to it that are just, beyond my pay grade. So we needed some help. Um, so that's the idea. Now, the actual cigar is the one I'm smoking right here. Um, this is the Andalusian Bold Blend, um, but in what I consider to be the perfect cigar size, right? It's a 42 by 6 1/4 Lonsdale. Um, for my taste, it's the best size, and this blend in this size, I mean, it's my favorite cigar in the world. I've been in love with this cigar for like almost 3 years now. I started making them just for myself a few years back. I'd hand them out to friends and colleagues, and always with the idea that I figured eventually we would release it, but I wanted to do something special with it. I just didn't know what, and I was just waiting for the idea to come. And then sometime later is when the whole NFT concept came to my head, and I was like, this cigar is fucking perfect for it, right? So yeah, basically we're doing a big experiment. This is something that's never been done in the industry before, and what we're doing is we're going to auction off 7 NFTs, um, and those 7 people are going to be the only 7 people in the world with the rights to purchase the cigar. All right, so this is going to be a very limited, very exclusive thing. They'll be allowed to purchase up to 70 cigars per month, and they're also going to get you had the picture of it there. The we call it the gold bullion humidor, right? Which is humidor. It looks like a gold brick, fucking beautiful, and it's going to have 50 cigars in it. We'll have their name. It'll be personalized, and then after that they'll be able to order up to 70 cigars per month for as long as they own the NFT. And the cool thing about the NFT is that this is an asset. It's technically an asset, and it can be resold, right? So at any moment, if you decide you want to sell it, you can put it up for sale, and in theory, it can increase in value, right? Just like a stock or a crypto coin or anything like that. And that's kind of the concept behind it.
What I like about it is that usually with some NFTs, you don't get anything from it other than you own. It's like, if it's artwork, you own that artwork, which is cool, but is like, what do you do with it after that? So with this
Yeah.
NFT, you at least get something out of it, and you keep getting something out of it. It's not just like a one-time thing, which I thought was really cool. And I was thinking about it this morning and thinking like this was like perfect for a boutique. I know we don't like that word, but a kind of boutique mentality, and that you want to make something, not mass produce it, but in really special quality and make it special. And this is the perfect way to do that, and to like, get people who are really fans of your brand like behind it. So
Yeah.
I'll be really curious to see how quickly those NFTs sell once they go kind of on the auction.
Yeah, we're gonna see what happens, man. But yeah, it's like you said, you touched on an important point. NFTs, I think the art-based NFTs for the most part, I don't get it. I don't see the value in it. I think it's strange because a painting is one thing because you can see the brush strokes of the artist, right? The original painting is the original painting. But if you can screenshot an NFT, it's exactly the same. There's no difference. The only difference is that the original one is technically worth money because it was traded on the blockchain and blah blah blah. But really, there's no actual difference, right? And I don't get it. I don't see the value in it. But I'm an idiot because I didn't make millions of dollars on it like a lot of people did, right? But I like the technology behind it, right? I love the technology behind the NFTs, and I figured this is going to evolve into things that make more sense. Um, Something like this, right? Because the idea is I don't want to just sell an image, you know. This has real value, like real world, tangible value, and that's the idea. I don't want to sell some bullshit picture because I don't believe in that. Um, but I do believe in real value, right? This is tangible, and so yeah, so that's an important point.
Yeah, and like if people want to learn more about NFTs, if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about NFTs almost every single day now.
Yeah,
So you can learn a
yeah,
whole lot by just listening to him. But basically, the idea is like you were explaining, Tony, is that it's a contract, and so right now it's kind of amorphous and it's just something super new. But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll probably see more NFTs coming into our lives in some form. Like it could be a concert ticket,
yeah,
it could be an apartment lease, it could be a
yeah.
condo lease. It'll be like
There's already houses being sold as NFTs. That's already begun.
exact
But you're going to see it. This is going to revolutionize the music industry, entertainment. There's going to be lots of uses for this. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
exactly, and it'll be interesting to see, like I said, how because now you all will be able to say that you were the pioneers of this in the cigar industry because somebody else will come along and they'll try to outdo you all in some way
Sure.
and make it better, and then it'll be just a process, and 20 years from now the cigar industry will be all NFT based, like instead of at PCA or whatever trade shows are in existence at that point. You all will be selling NFTs to the retailers to make them exclusive carriers of this cigar or that cigar, and this limited edition exclusive and stuff like that. So it'll be fun to see
Well,
how that evolves.
we'll see. I think a lot of people are going to be watching to see how this plays out because I have no idea how this is going to play out. We'll see. I mean, it could be genius. I could look like an idiot. We're going to see. But I think a lot of people will be watching to see how this plays out. And if it's successful, then yeah, I think this won't be the last time that somebody does one. But it was super important to me to be first. You know,
Yeah,
I think being first, the first of its kind was like the goal. So like for a year and a half, man, like I had sleepless nights, just thinking like, oh, any minute now somebody could release one, and so it was like it was very stressful, But we got to announce it first at least, so that was good.
awesome. So speaking of trade shows, what do you all have coming up for PCA? I know that's coming up in a couple weeks, and
Yeah,
you all were not able to come last year, but you're making a big return this year. So,
yeah.
what can people expect out of La Flor Dominicana at this year's trade show?
So we've got one major release, and we teased it a little bit the other day. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, we teased this on our Instagram. Solis is our new project. These are the bands. Um, and Solis is a interesting project because this is the first time that my little brother, Litto Jr., collaborated with us on a project. He's just finishing up at UM now. He's finishing up his college, and we're gonna put him to work soon. But he's for years he's like wanted to do a project, and this was his idea. He wanted to do a contrast to Lennox, right? So the idea is it's going to have the same round box. The cigars will be the same size, but totally different blend. Much lighter color wrapper, much brighter flavors. It's kind of like that's the idea. Is like we're doing the opposite of Lennox, right? We're completing the
Right.
circle, the sun and the moon, and that's the idea. So he every time he's on break, from school, he comes down, and then we've been working on blends together, and working on the packaging and the idea. And over the last couple of years, we put this project together, and now we're releasing it, man. So that's an exciting one.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'll be at PCA this year for I think maybe not the whole time, but definitely on the Saturday and Sunday, and maybe part of that Monday. So I'll definitely
Yeah,
make an effort to stop by and check that project out. So
perfect,
um,
perfect.
at this point in the show, when we're getting ready to wrap up, I usually like to have you uh, play advice columnist to our listeners and watchers. So there's two questions I usually ask. One of those questions is, what is your why? What motivates you to do what you do?
Oh man, that's a good one. I I like to make things that I like, right? So I mean, we make cigars, we make a cigar and we're making it for us. Like I'm making a cigar that I want to smoke. And then, you hope that the market agrees with you, but at the end of the day, we make things because we love cigars. We love to smoke cigars. And it doesn't matter if it's LFD or a different brand. A great cigar is a great cigar, and I'll enjoy any cigar. But I like to make things that I enjoy. I like to. I'm very. It's almost sounds selfish, but I'm making everything for me. You know,
Good.
and when it comes to packaging and art and whatever, like I'm trying to please myself. I'm trying to make something that I step back and look at. I'm like, that's fucking cool. It's that satisfaction that you get from something. That's what I'm always chasing. That's like the high. And so that's really it. Where I'm just trying to make shit that I like.
Awesome. The second question is, someone comes to you and they say, they have an idea for a business that they want to start on their own, but they have no idea where to get started or how to get started. What advice do you give that person on how to get started? And it might be a cigar business, it might not be. So,
Well, that's a good one. I've never started the business, right? So I didn't start LFD. I walked into a fully well-oiled machine. Um, but I if I give any advice on that, man, it would be you have to figure out who you are. I mean, and it's not just branding, but it's what does it mean? Like what is the message that people are going to think? What are people going to imagine in their head when they see your logo? When they think of your brand, what's the first thing that comes into them? And that's the message that you need to control. And that's a very fickle thing, right? You have to nurture the shit out of that. And if you don't, well, uh, misfortune will probably be in your future. But you have to have a mission, and you have to stick to it, and never lie to your customers, and be honest. And dude, try to be the best, right? I mean, if you're gonna compete, if you're gonna make a product, I don't know, don't make a cheap one. I'd say try to go and be the best one, right, or amongst the best. Um, because if say you're running a cigar factory that just makes mass produces low quality stuff, it's really almost the same amount of work as a factory that's making high quality stuff. Like you're like 90% of the way there, and it's just the little details that make the difference, but it's almost the same amount of work. So if you're going to put in the work, make it good.
awesome. I think that's advice anybody can follow. So, that's exactly what I was hoping to get out of that question. Um, as we kind of wrap up for today, can you tell people what social media they need to follow, what websites they need to go to in order to keep up with La Flor Dominicana and also yourself?
Sure. Instagram is the most important place to follow us and stay updated. Um, we're going to be releasing a launch page for the NFT pretty soon this week, where we're going to have all sorts of instructions and kind of just lay everything out, and we'll reveal the actual art of the NFT. And so that'll be coming very soon. So that'll be something to keep on, to look out for. We're going to be posting a little bit more about the new projects for IPCPR as well, and just the goings of the company. And I take pretty cool pictures, so they're nice to look at too. So give them a like if you see them. We appreciate that. But yeah, Instagram LFD Cigars. That's the best place to keep up with us.
Well, awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today and, like I said, sharing the La Flor Dominicana story with us. And maybe at some point we can convince your dad to come on here, and I'm sure he'll have some interesting stories to share with us.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely want to maybe put that out there and get that in the works at some point this year. But I'm looking forward to seeing you and the La Flor Dominicana team at the trade show in a couple of weeks, and continuing to share your story with the listeners and watchers of this little meek little podcast I'm putting on.
Well, likewise, brother. I look forward to seeing you, and thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, definitely. For those of you watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, just make sure you hit that like button or subscribe button to be notified of anytime we have new content coming out. You can also go to deepcutslive.com to see this interview in its entirety later on tonight, and also the other 92 episodes of Deep Cuts Live. And we do have a unannounced special show coming out tomorrow. So there'll be more stuff on that on Instagram, or if you're watching this in the past tense, you probably already see it or what it is. So I'm looking forward to having two kind of industry heavy hitters on Deep Cuts. Tony Gomez, and now tomorrow it'll be a follow up with Matt Booth, who of course made news last week with Room 101. So we'll be getting the scoop on that tomorrow in a special show. So
Goofy's the man. Ask him about Acapulco.
okay, I
He'll
will.
know.
I always like having questions. So I'll definitely ask him about that and see how he responds. Hopefully, it'll be a interesting response. Um, yeah, but thank you again, Tony, for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching. And until next time.